Izuku Midoriya goes flying forward, blasting forward using practically the same technique Bakugou more or less implies. He has far less control. Obviously, he's not used to his quirk, nowhere near as Bakugou is, but he flies forward, but Bakugou is able to counter relatively easily. He's able to smash and punch Izuku in the opposite direction, holding him off relatively easily. It seems that Bakugou's motion and Bakugou's movement is far greater than Izuku's. Izuku needs to find another way to get past him, use any training he's ever had using his quirk to try his best to do so. But even that is extremely difficult, so he decides that he's going to go hand-to-hand combat off the rip. He walks toward Bakugou, and Bakugou smirks, saying that I guess it's time for an actual fight. Immediately they begin to use hand-to-hand combat to more or less try and fight each other, Izuku having that hybrid advantage, but nonetheless Bakugou can still utilize his quirk in these close quarters. Izuku can as well. During these conflicts that him and Bakugou are having though, he uses slight bits of radiation to actually and hopefully slow down Bakugou in the usage of his quirk. This is something he wanted to try out in the first place, and this would be a great way to try it out. He tries to make Bakugou fall asleep, more or less using the radiation to make him lightheaded and restrict his breathing. But that would end up being a terrible idea once Bakugou figures out how to counter it. Yo, what is good everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back with part 2 of What If Deku had a radioactive quirk. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below, all that good stuff. Also, make sure to check the description for other things like my anime channel, my Spotify that I have slowly but surely putting all of my What If movies on. And yeah, that's about it. I hope y'all enjoy, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. And let's just get right into the what if, or the rest of it. Let's get it. Immediately, Izuku tries to use his radiation, kind of this gas form of it. But when he tries to do so, Bakugou sees the opportunity, backs up, and blasts as much explosives as possible. When he does, the radiated gas actually does the opposite of what Izuku wanted to do. It blasts right back at him, and he's actually not, and is straight up unable to counteract the effect that it's going to have, bluntly hitting him as hard as possible and blasting him away into a building. He slowly gets up, but he can feel that part of his suit is not only ripped, but he is mildly injured. He tries to walk toward Bakugou and actually try to fight back, but he can feel that his body hurts extremely bad. It seems to be failing him extremely quickly. He can't really contain the radiation as well as he once was, and he turns on his watch. When he does, it contains the radiation, but it basically puts him at such a disadvantage now that there's really no way of him continuing this fight. He collapses to the ground and just passes out entirely. Bakugou picks him up and begins to run him back toward All Might and the people, or his fellow students, and obviously Bakugou has won the fight. But Bakugou's confused. He's been training his quirk this entire time. What made this occur? It actually seems as if this radiation in his body is kind of slowly but surely changing. There's various amounts of radiation, at least the one right now was more of a nuclear-like radiation, but it seems like his body is actually developing various different forms of radiation. Right now, it's slowly but surely drifting into gamma radiation. Gamma radiation very similar to something that would give him regenerative powers. It seems as if his big wound is actually healing, but in terms of this, his body reacted on its own. Izuku was unknown to this radioactive occurrence, and it actually drained his stamina entirely. He wasn't entirely out of the fight. He can fight with a small wound or like a wound in his back. He'd be okay. But with this drastic change in radiation and gamma radiation trying to recover his body, it seems to have drained his stamina entirely. So when he gets there, there is no wound on his body, but Izuku is in some sort of catatonic state at this moment. They bring him to Recovery Girl, and she explains just that. There's nothing wrong with him at all. It's just he's out cold from, it seems, his body recovering at such a rapid rate. the gamma radiation must have seeped through his wounds and instantly healed them, very similar to what they've seen basically on TV shows. If you give an example, you would see like the Hulk being able to regenerate most injuries, if not all, at an extremely rapid rate, but Izuku's body wasn't prepared for it by any means. So when it happened, he passed out. Izuku obviously didn't know about this and is out cold for a little bit. Actually, when he wakes up, he hears something extremely disturbing. He hears about his class being locked down in the USJ. He's not sure exactly what happened or even what's going on, but Izuku asks if he can go help something, but of course he's rejected on that. They say that there's pro heroes that are gathering up and they're going to help right now, but Izuku doesn't want to hear that. What is he doesn't want to just sit around and do nothing. People over there are getting hurt. But of course, Recovery Girl tells him not to worry and that All Might should have it handled. And obviously Recovery Girl reminds him that he just woke up. He can't go do anything crazy. They don't even know what's happening with his body. Of course, Izuku doesn't know either, and that they're going to have to run a ton of tests on him. He's not told this at the moment, but he understands this idea that he is practically a bomb. He is a bomb waiting to happen. He's one reaction, one bad thing could occur, and he could level the entire area or make everything around them inhabitable. So Izuku is definitely an important piece and an important threat. At the end of the day, he still doesn't have full control over his quirk, so that's what they're worrying about right now, and that he should be worrying about himself at this moment. Izuku then just continues to wait. Eventually, he hears about what occurred, and unfortunately, everything kind of falls into place, but All Might was able to get there without everybody being hurt, and most people were actually pretty safe in the overall scheme of things. Even with that said, Izuku isn't really able to speak with his classmates. He's just sent to a facility. It seems like UA has actually endorsed a facility that is going to help him at least contain or learn more about his powers. And quickly they'd find out over the next couple days exactly what his powers do and how they work. It seems that his powers actually deal with every radioactive material. It seems like it doesn't just stop at a radioactive quirk. It has various amounts of different radiations. The two things that they've seen so far is your base nuclear radiation, but also gamma radiation. It seems that the gamma radiation is, like they just discovered now, but we already know, is how he regenerated so quickly. But there's a lot more to gamma radiation than just regenerative powers. It seems like there's a whole different system involved within that. Same thing with nuclear radiation and how he can kind of manipulate his body into making explosions using it. But that takes so much control that it's practically unusable in certain circumstances. And if he's in a certain area, and probably a concentrated area, it wouldn't be the best idea to actually use those explosions, given that the radiation is pretty lethal if he's not careful. He didn't actually know this, and he's been kind of just using the explosions and then retracting the radiation back into his body. But they even tell him that yes, that is a fix for now, but that's also a reason why his stamina is getting drained so heavily. It seems like there are a lot of things to think about in terms of his powers, and over the course of 3 to 5 days, it's just all testing. That's all Izuku has been doing. Unfortunately, he hasn't been with his class for a little bit, but soon he would hear about the UA Sports Festival. And the only problem is he's can't use his quirk. He's told that due to these occurrences that continue to happen around his quirk, he's actually going to have to limit himself to literally just not using it. And Izuku says that's fine. He doesn't care. He still wants to go out there and show what he can do, and then he'll make sure to master his quirk nonetheless. But just as Aizawa is informed about this, he tells Izuku that it probably wouldn't be the best idea to go out there without being able to use his quirk. That there's going to be a lot of heroes watching, and that just them knowing that he exists and the quirk that the type of quirk he has should be good enough. He doesn't want to go out there and mess up or do anything bad. But Izuku shakes his head and says that he won't. He promises that he's going to give it his best and that at least he'll try to get to at least past the first round. Aizawa isn't really too fond of the idea of him risking for basically somehow using his quirk outside on accident and maybe hurting somebody, but he's going to allow Izuku to have that choice. He gives Izuku that choice, and he goes out to the UA Sports Festival just as it's about to begin, and the first event is an obstacle course race. Just through sheer, more or less, him having decent skills and just using his IQ, he's able to do pretty well, at least half decent in this regard. Of course, the original Izuku was able to practically make it all the way without using his quirk and actually getting first place without using his quirk at all. And this version of Izuku is actually decently stronger quite a bit because of the training he's had. Of course, he hasn't had like insane amounts of training at this point, but he has been basically learning to use his quirk, which does give him a good stamina boost and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to waste much time with the logistics of it, but Izuku would still rank in about the top 5 or top 10. But of course, he wouldn't do anything as risky as lining up a bunch of explosions to launch himself, because he knows how his quirk works. If he somehow let radiation leak and he basically pops these small little landmines, yeah, it could be pretty catastrophic. Nonetheless, he's able to qualify for the next round, which involves him actually being part of a team. And this team round would more or less involve them trying to grab headbands. Unfortunately, I would say he probably doesn't come out of this round at all. Unfortunately, he would fall slightly short, but nonetheless, he tried his best, and the people with him even thank him for the opportunity. But nonetheless, Izuku is still pretty uplifted in terms of what he's done. He did all this without his quirk. Yes, his quirk is very dangerous, and he sees how powerful and the potential behind it, but he just needs real training. Real training. Basically, someone that can teach him the way of using this quirk without really hurting anybody and trying to maintain that quirk the best he possibly can. Izuku would enter class once again, and everybody would be happy to see him. Obviously, he kind of just ran in randomly in terms of the UA Sports Festival. They haven't seen him too much, and they weren't really allowed to visit him. And he doesn't really say much of what he's been doing. He's been kind of just working here and there in terms of trying to get his quirk stabilized and learn about his quirk, as everyone knows. But nonetheless, Aizawa begins to say that today they'll be choosing their agencies in terms of their little internship. Izuku waits on, and he actually realizes that he got a decent amount of people to reach out to him. It seems that there are some people that want to work with him and learn about his quirk. It seems as if they really want to know exactly how it works, and if maybe they can train him and be known as someone that actually lived up to being able to train someone as strong as Izuku, hopefully in the future, or at least how strong he'll be in the near future. So he decides to look through all of the paper and all of the names, eventually spotting one that actually came straight to his eye, and that is Sir Nighteye. Sir Nighteye himself wants to train him. Nightaye's intentions are a little bit different compared to everyone else's. Nighteye does care about Izuku's well-being and also cares more about actually getting him to perfect his power compared to him actually getting the publicity about it. And Izuku assumed that as much. Nighteye seems to be a class act, so that's exactly what's going to happen. Izuku would obviously wait till the end of the day, confirm where he's going, and actually All Might would approach him, asking him a couple questions about why he chose Nighteye, and he explains exactly why, and All Might says that all would be very true. Nighteye is a stand-up and class act. So Izuku would just feel pretty confident about his choice, and he would actually head over. And luckily, not only is Nighteye going to be there, Mirio is as well. Mirio will actually help him train and get to know his powers a little bit more without the risk of truly hurting Mirio. Frankly, Mirio's quirk is kind of extremely good for this. I would say the best, but Aizawa's would be the best because he can kind of just cancel out the quirk entirely. Nonetheless, their training actually begins. Mirio says that Nighteye is currently out on another mission at the moment, so he's actually kind of just there to train him for the first day, and their sparring session does go a little bit better than, or at least in favor of Izuku, compared to what it was when they first started out. Izuku does know his powers a little bit more, and is starting to actually creep up on the fact of using it to a proper extent. He knows that retracting and putting it, or expelling and retracting that radiation back into his body and out of his body is a huge drain on his stamina. He also knows that when he gets fatal injuries, he has to actually focus on different radiation so that he can either maintain the injury, or basically not get it healed, or heal the injury using the gamma radiation, but properly using it in comparison to last time where the gamma radiation flooded his body, instantly healing him, but also knocking him out because of the rush of radiation that was within his body at such a quick rate. Nonetheless, though, Izuku would slowly but surely learn how to do this over that day. Mirio tells him straight up that he had basically some scary times with his quirk too. He could theoretically just phase straight through the ground right into the Earth's core and just die. Izuku actually relates to this heavily. Obviously, Izuku can also kill himself with his quirk, but more or less can kill a ton of people with his quirk. So that's kind of the more scary part for him personally, but at least Mirio is trying to make some sort of connection with Izuku to make him feel slightly better about the situation. After that day passes and their training kind of finishes up, Izuku begins to train with Sir Nighteye. Sir Nighteye is a lot stricter than Mirio, and Mirio makes this very apparent before their training even starts, but Sir Nighteye says that he sees a lot of potential in him, but he also can't be a person that will sacrifice others in light of being that hero, that he has to be extremely careful, and he's worried about that quirk. He even actually has done a scan on Izuku, seeing his life basically in this weird reel from the eyes of Izuku type of thing, and he sees Izuku being a great hero. He knows he can be. He doesn't exactly see exactly how he'll be that great hero, but he knows that there is a chance. Nighteye then explains. He quickly explains that him and Mirio, after the training with himself obviously, will head out to a nearby city, get some patrols in, and he's going to focus on using the radiation extremely sparingly, as if the radiation did not exist in his body. He wants to make it so that the radiation does not reside within Izuku at all. He can just produce it. That idea may trick Izuku's mind into actually not producing radiation passively within his body, which Nighteye assumes is probably a problem in general. So Izuku's training is that, to make it so that he feels no radiation residing in his body. Because Izuku, yes, he's used to it, you would know if there was radiation, if there was something within your body that you are concurrently controlling. So Izuku would do just that. Over the course of that day, he would just focus on that. It's just pure meditation and getting himself grounded to earth, focusing, remembering, not wanting to hurt anybody, and keeping himself as calm as possible. Izuku would actually meet with therapists throughout this day for that said issue. They'd want him to get out any emotional occurrences or scary things he thinks about, or straight up anger that he's ever felt in his life, and talk about it immediately so that he doesn't have to deal with that out on the battlefield. Yes, there are going to be instances that his rage may take over. Heroes see that every day. Sometimes you'll see a kid getting tortured. You'll see an innocent man brutally killed. You'll need to have to focus that emotion into happiness, into calmness, into using that emotion in the battlefield properly, and not through the use of just pure anger and letting yourself go haywire. Izuku hears them loud and clear, and he's known about this for a while, but he's never thought about eliminating all his radioactive or radiation entirely. He's never even thought about something like that. He just thought that his body produced it naturally and there was no stopping it. So it would just be basically within his body as if it were breathing. You don't think about breathing, he doesn't think about producing it, but he does think about containing it. He begins to think more and more about not producing it at all, and eventually after that whole day, he got it down to a certain degree. Not perfectly. It takes so much concentration and so much calmness in his body for that to actually occur, and his body to basically dispel it within itself, but make it into nothingness, that it's almost arguably impossible, especially when he's walking around. Because any feeling, any out level a feeling. Let's say he stubs his toe, that could cause him to produce it within his body again. Let's say he sees a sad movie, that could happen again. These simple, very simple terms, it all could happen just like that, as quickly as a snap of a finger. So him and Mirio the next day, or the third day of their training, would go out and begin this kind of worldly training session for him. He walks around, stays calm, and introduces himself to random people as Izuku Midoriya, a new hero. He would just continue to do this, and Mirio even questions why he doesn't have a hero name yet, and Izuku actually scratches his head. Oh yeah, you're right. I never even came up with one. I guess I'm gonna have to come up with one, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I need to focus on this. Mirio agrees. He doesn't mean to distract him from that, of course, but he'll still have to remind him maybe later at the end of their whole agency to come up with one. So Izuku would be focusing as hard as possible during their little patrols, coming across minor villains, but of course Mirio handles it with relative ease, and if he needs help from Izuku, Izuku can support by guiding people out and getting people out of harm's way. After some time though, Mirio gets a buzz on his phone, and that buzz begins to shake like crazy until he answers it. When he does, he hears the voice of Sir Nighteye, and Sir Nighteye tells him to get back to the agency right now, and it seems extremely urgent. Izuku does begin to get slightly paranoid, but remembers all of the training he's been doing, calming himself back down, and the radiation seems to filter out entirely and just disappear into nothingness again. They head back to, obviously, Sir Nighteye's agency, and all that radiation within his body, yes, it's gone for now, but when he hears the thing that he's about to hear, all that radiation would fill his body once again, because he hears from Sir Nighteye's mouth that one of his classmates has died. A classmate by the name of Tenya Ida has been killed by Stain, the hero killer. He's insanely just freaked out by this. Killed? One of us killed. How is it that possible? Sir Nighteye looks at Izuku and says that these are the things that he's going to have to deal with every single day. He's going to have to deal with them. And that this is a hero's job, and if he's not up for it, he shouldn't be a hero. Izuku nods and calms himself down once again, and Sir Nighteye smiles. You're getting used to it, kid. I'm proud of you. Look, I know these things are hard, and I have to be hard on you for those reasons. Because yes, you can be an extremely, extremely good asset in the field, but you could be the opposite if not trained well. We'll be seeing each other again pretty soon. The agency decided that we'll be sending you back a little early. I apologize for that. I believe that more training is definitely needed. But I promise, you continue down this road, you'll make it. And not only that, we'll be here to help. You don't need to worry about it, okay? Izuku is shocked to hear this. He's never heard such supporting words, especially from someone like Sir Nighteye. Yes, he's heard supporting words from Aizawa in his own Aizawa way, but nonetheless, he feels kind of welcomed, as if Mirio and Nighteye are completely on his side. Yes, it's going to be a tough road, especially with a quirk like his, and he realizes that he's not the only one, that there are various amounts of people out there that have quirks similar to his. So Izuku knows that he'll have to do exactly what he's doing for everyone else. For those people that may have powerful quirks, had powerful quirks that they couldn't use, and they were pushed to the point where they weren't allowed to use it. So they had to just do normal jobs. Their dream of being a hero would be just washed away. He wants to do it for them. And this would become extremely apparent when he arrives back in his class, when Aizawa speaks to his entire class, telling them that it is no more time for mourning, that they might be sad, but Tenya Ida will not die in vain, that they need to be stronger, they need to be faster, they need to be smarter, and they need to be even better heroes than Tenya would be. Izuku nods and just knows deep down inside that he can be a top hero. No, not a top hero. Izuku can be the #1 hero. Testing soon will prove that. He'll study like crazy, and he'll make sure he trains his quirk to the utmost limit. And over the course of this next week, until his final exam, he does just that. He not only trains his quirk, but trains his mind. He goes and sees Nighteye, or Sir Nighteye once again, and Sir Nighteye is happy to see the commitment that Izuku has, giving or allowing him to speak with those therapists, with those emotional trainers, the people that can keep him calm, keep him ready, and keep him focused. And not only that, he studies with every classmate that he's ever had in terms of them being smart. Obviously, he has Momo Yaoyorozu. Bakugou himself is extremely smart as well. He studies with all of them. Yes, he's smart in his own right. Honestly, close to, if not on par with them. But nonetheless, he still wants to study with the smartest people he possibly can. He realized with Sir Nighteye that if you're the smartest person in that room, in the room that you're sitting in, maybe you shouldn't be in that room. Izuku wants to learn more, and this whole ordeal that happened with him passing out on the ground fighting his best friend, he realized that there's more to his quirk than what he was realizing. Sir Nighteye has showed him that, Aizawa has, and everything around him has as well. So he's going to make sure that he'll be the strongest hero. He's going to make sure that whatever happens in the near future, that he can be a top hero, the #1 hero. He's going to make sure he can do all of that. But as always, words are cheap. So Izuku knows what he has to do. He passes, obviously he knows how well he did on the written exam, but then he hears about the next exam. Supposedly it's supposed to be against robots, but Izuku knows better. He knows Aizawa, and he knows that it won't be against robots. It's going to be against something far different. It's going to be against the teachers. Soon they'd find out who their opponents were, and Izuku would find out that he and someone else, Katsuki Bakugou, were the last ones to have their little show-off or little fight with their teacher. But who's that teacher that they must face? Well, that's the one and only All Might. The #1 hero comes crashing down from the sky and begins to speak. I will be your opponent. Izuku looks at Bakugou, and Bakugou does the same. They nod at each other and fist bump and think that now it's time to show the fruits of their labor. Izuku has worked so hard to get to this point, so hard to fight right now, to make sure that he can be the strongest, and this is the first step. The first step is him and his best friend, Bakugou Katsuki, defeating All Might. And if they can do that, they'll be right on track with what they want to become in the near future as heroes themselves. But what would happen if Izuku lost control? Would something catastrophic happen? Injury is prone to happen. Would watching his best friend get hurt truly scold him for life, destroy his emotional state, or did all of that training truly pay off? And will he be able to emotionally control himself, but also fight side to side with his best friend? Well, you'll have to find out on the next part of What If Deku Had a Radioactive Quirk. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, a sub, a comment down below, all that good stuff. I'm sorry if things are a little bit mismatched. I don't know why, but my editing software, the one I'm recording on, is a little weird. Or you guys might be hearing me say this and you guys are like, what are you talking about? There's nothing mismatched. But when I'm editing it, it seems like there's kind of a delay with my graph in terms of the speech waves or the sound waves. So things might be slightly cut off. So sorry about that if there is. If there's not, dope. I did it right and hopefully properly. Nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope all of y'all leave a like, sub, comment down below, suggestions, stuff like that. And also check the links in the description. And I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later. I don't wanna waste what's left.